This week on Chapters Over Coffee, we're going over chapters 21 through 25. Last week's episode, we ended with them all at the war camp where Danya was threatening Kingfisher with her sword to the neck when Saris yelled stop, causing the sword to shatter. This reveals that they may have an alchemist with them to everybody else who hadn't known. But before anything else could happen, there was a loud boom and her and Carrion were ordered to stay in the tent. So this is we kind of pick up back where we left off. Saris was trying to talk Carrion out of going down to the Darn and helping. She knew they were no match for what was down there, but Carrion was still was going there because he may not be no match for the, in his words, he may be no match for the fuckers in a fight, but he could break some ice. And then he calls her his ex. But I'm sorry. Excuse me, sir, but y'all only hooked up once and that was that. And she made it known that, they're not exes.
Yeah.
So he makes his way down to the riverbank. She's following him, trying to keep up. There were huge Fey warriors down there breaking the ice. They were distracted with what was described as a seething dark mass that was roaring on the other side of the riverbank. It was a horde of vampires, 50,000 feeders. Realizing the severity of the situation, both Saris and Carrion found hammers and started to help break the ice. As soon as the ice broke, a carpet of black smoke rolled across the river. The smoke shoved the feeders down into the water, dragging them to their watery graves. And Saris tells Carrion, because Carrion didn't know what it was, that it was Fisher. So now we're introduced to a new character in the story, and he's going to play a big part, I'm assuming. When the voice spoke asking if Fisher was going to come out and play, warriors around them paled and stated it was someone named Malcolm. Malcolm was a tall, slender, unassuming-looking male with straight white hair that went past his shoulders, and to me, it was giving the Volturi vibes, if anybody's seen the Twilight movies. Jamie. What is it? Jamie Bauer Campbell? He was the blonde, and that's kind of who I pictured with the blonde hair, just longer. And the blood red eyes. Saris notes how he was almost handsome. Malcolm calls out Fisher again, but this time mentions that it has only been a couple weeks since they last spoke and he misses him. And if you put two and two together, because later on we find out that Fisher was with him, that 2 weeks ago was when she came. So he broke free through the Quicksilver, so I'm assuming that there's a Quicksilver portal where Malcolm is at. But this causes a reaction amongst the Fae, but Saris knew the tactic Malcolm was giving to win this war, and she also knew that Fisher was going to have to explain to everyone why he was siding with the enemy, or why he was with the enemy, pretty much. This leads into the next chapter where after the encounter with Malcolm, Kingfisher came and found Saris, making sure Ren had the annoying one while he takes her back to his room. Once they're there, he wants to know why she doesn't wear any of the dresses he leaves out for her, but she doesn't want to talk about them. So he decides he wants to talk about food and lets her know that she is not to share food with Carrion. And he says it in a very possessive way. She was allowed to share with anyone else, so Lorith or Ren, but not Carrion. And then gets mad and doesn't want to talk about Carrion, or in his words, Swift, even though, he was the one that brought up the whole thing in the first place. Now he wants not to talk about him. So Saris tries to talk to him about what happened on the riverbank, but Fisher brought her to his room to forget about the riverbank. He knew he could have taken them down, but he also knew they were at war and people die or rise again and feed off the living. He then points out about her being worried about him because he saw the look on her face when Danya wanted to lop off his head. She tries to play it off that if he died, then she wouldn't be able to go home. So she then changes the subject, letting him know that his friends weren't going to be happy, but he just says that everyone will have forgotten by the morning, which later on we find out does not happen. And then we kind of get a little backstory here about Malcolm, that he is the first high fae vampire. He was one of the ones who liked the dark magic from the curses and chose not to take the antidote, thus making him and the others immortal, or his children. And then I have a quote, because she asks him if the fae, she says, aren't the fae already immortal? And Fisher says, no, we're not. Our lifespans are the subject of much research and conjecture. We outlive your kind by a long, long time, but we age. Eventually we die. There were those like Malcolm who didn't want to age. They weren't content to make the most of the thousands of years they had already been granted, so they took what was supposed to be a punishment and embraced it with open arms. Malcolm is the strongest of them, their king. Of all the fae who choose to remain vampires, he alone is strong enough to fully turn someone and ensure they remain themselves. What makes them who they are, their personality and their character traits. When his princes bite and turn someone, their victims die and return without their souls, nothing more than mindless, hungry shells. They obey their master and they feed, which are all the feeders. So then Sarris figures out that the years Fisher had went missing, he was actually with Malcolm, but Fisher states that he can't tell her that. And I believe, I guess it's coming up here. She watches him. She realized that he wasn't in control. Like Fisher wasn't in control. Malcolm was was the one in control in this situation because he was bound to Malcolm. So this makes Fisher try to tell her it wasn't any of her business, and that's why he wouldn't tell her, but she knew it was because whatever happens to him would affect her. So this causes them to get into an argument where she pushes him, and not like literally pushing him, but like pushes his buttons to try to get a reaction out of him and get him to answer things. She was saying things like, I know you don't hate me, that things will change between them once he fucks her, that he wants to bite her because he nearly did back in the tent. Then she tells him to show her and prove that she was wrong. So then cue 4 pages of spice, and then y'all could read it, enjoy it yourselves, but at your own time. But I give it about a 3.5 to 4 out of 5 on the spice rating. Like, it was spicy, but it wasn't like crazy. I mean, I've read spicier stuff, so we'll give it like a 3.5 to 4 out of 5 on that scale.
That was pretty intense. Especially when she was thinking about him, like, saying things, but he wasn't actually, like, saying things. Like, I was listening to it, and I was like, girl.
At one point, she placed her hand on his chest when his wolf tattoo flowed along her fingertips, spreading over her skin. Next, a delicate bird took shape on her right forearm, stretching its wings and taking flight over her stomach. All right, and then after the wham bam, thank you ma'am, Fisher lets her know that he wants her to stay there tonight because the camp would be still in chaos. She had no say in it, but Archer was there if she needed anything. And poor Archer. That's all I had to say.
Like, bitch, y'all were doing construction. There wasn't no moving furniture about that. That was construction time.
I had seen TikToks on it, and it, like, once I read it, I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. He then vanishes into the Shadow Gate. Thinker, no,
Intimate,
Thinker.
intimate relations can be very strenuous.
Yes. Thinking
Sorry.
Fisher had used the oath bond on her, she ran to the door, testing it out. When it opened, she was met with Archer. And then I have his dialogue quoted, and he says, "Apologies, my lady. I came because I heard a disturbance in Master Fisher's rooms. When I arrived there, I found Onyx whining at the door, and I decided to wait until you were finished to see if you needed anything. Intimate relations can be very strenuous." Strenuous. Poor Archer. So she tried to play it off, as they're moving furniture back and forth, and then Fisher didn't like the way they moved the furniture, so they moved it back to the way it was. Even though Archer doesn't look convinced, and he knew exactly what was going on, because then
Oh,
he
yeah.
hands her apple juice and the cake that he brought her and says these were to replenish her energy levels. Poor Archer. And that's where we ended there.
Okay. So we're getting over the events of the night before. Whew, some pretty intense shit that went down. Moving furniture really is pretty strenuous.
Yeah.
Um, she goes through the shadow gate when she realizes that Fisher isn't coming there to get her. She's beyond pissed at this point. She got dressed. She knows she has a very new addition to her skin. Because I'm assuming when the like wolf tattoo like flowed over her skin, that's what kind of like stayed there or whatever. But she's got a bird tattoo now that kind of stuck with her after their whole
I think
little,
it's like a
nasty,
bond.
nasty.
I think it's like a bonding thing.
That's why I thought, like I feel like there's more to them. Like there's some sort of bond. I don't know if it's a mate thing, like I don't know. But that's why I kind of thought maybe he had like used part of his soul to like save her, and then maybe that's got more of a connection because of like who they are. It's different than like him bonding
Oh.
part of his soul with Lorith, and it recognizes a part of him and her, or because
Oh, now I see what you're
like
saying. But I don't think the
yeah, like
words.
doesn't have anything. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the words. That I think is completely something. I think that has something to do with Malcolm
Yes, that's what I was
or
trying to tell you
a
like earlier.
parent.
Like that's my
Like
theory.
yeah,
No, I think that the words have something to do with Malcolm.
yeah. I don't think they have anything to do with being bonded. I just think the whole tattoo going to her either recognizes something in her as being part of him, or maybe they're like a fated mate type of thing and it recognizes that and it's like hinting. And that's when I was like, did he fucking mark her? Like, was that a way of marking her with the tattoo? And then because of what he says to Carrion at the end of the chapter,
Mm.
um, with, I'll quote that when we get there, but you should call her Majesty. Like, would like I was like, fuck, did he just mark her? Like, is this like way more to them than what we think? Like,
When you text me that about that part, I wasn't there yet.
sorry.
I had to go back and read like some of their intimate scenes. I'm like, did I miss something when they were doing it? Did he call her something when they were doing it? Like I had to go and skim back through to make sure. No, and then I could write down. I'm like, oh, that's what she meant. I just wasn't there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, and I don't, like I said, I don't think it has anything to do with the words that keep repeating. I think that there's more to that. I don't know if it's somebody calling to them from the Quicksilver. I don't know if it has something to do with Malcolm. Like that has nothing to do with whatever bond they have going on.
I'll get to that
Um,
later on when she actually
oh,
says the words. But
but
I think they're tied
it's
to Malcolm.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're connected to his dad. Who fucking knows?
But
Like maybe it's a chant his dad's saying over and over to get
I don't
somebody's
see what
attention. I
the
don't fucking
I
know.
don't see why he'd be afraid.
Maybe he's not afraid. Maybe he's just surprised that she would know that, and
I think there's more to it. There's more to it.
we're gonna find out. Um, So yeah, she's pissed. The bird tattoo appeared on her after doing the nasty nasty the night before. She wants him to take it back, but he can't. So he tells her to have it covered up and that there are plenty of board warriors with the needles and ink who could do it, which honestly surprised her that it would be that easy. I'm not sure if it would be that easy. I feel like he's just kind of like fucking with her, like, okay, yeah,
Trying to
go ahead,
reassure.
fine. But then it's gonna just be there again or
Oh
whatever. Like
no.
it's gonna take shape to something else.
I wonder if it was like to get her to go ask somebody to do it and they're like, "Oh, sorry. Yeah, we can't
Yeah.
do that. There's nothing we can do to help you and stuff." Like that type of thing.
Yeah. So then he goes in and tells her, that they're going to see the healer. She needs to see them. She needs to take something after last night's activities, the strenuous furniture moving. And that children could be super rare between human and fae, but they are not impossible, which she thinks that's funny, that he's honestly concerned about that. Um, but we find out that when she was 14, she went through something called a cleansing. Fisher's instantly pissed when she, brings this up, and she says that they take them and they sterilize them. The third ward is the poorest, and the health advisors had decided that they shouldn't be able to procreate because they wouldn't be able to support themselves. It had been in effect for over 100 years, and 7 out of every 10 females were tagged when they were registered um, with the ward officials. Fisher, to say the least, is just even more pissed, like after she finishes saying that. And so he, instead of like yelling at her or whatever, he doesn't say anything other than to find the forge and get to work. And he fucking leaves. Um,
I feel like maybe he wanted his own kids later on with her, or there's more to it. Like
yeah,
he
I don't know.
knows
Yeah.
what they were doing, like the whole thing behind why they were doing it.
Which I had put in here that I think that that's going to be extra fuel to go after Madra now for doing that. And then I put like I feel like there's something more going on with Fisher and Saris than we kind of realize. And it almost seems like there's this like imprint thing with her or whatever, not like a Twilight type of Jacob imprinting on Renesmee.
Yeah.
But with the whole with the tattoo thing, like there's something I feel like there's a connection
Well, she
that
gets
might mean something bigger because she gets more
more.
later on
Yeah.
when they have another um activity time.
Listen,
And
this is.
so and then he can hide them. Like he can
Yeah.
hide them and she can choose and that to me is interesting, but the fact that they have another moment and then she ends up with more stuff. So I feel like there's something more between them
Right.
and and then after reading like what he did with Lorith and kind of how that works and stuff, I didn't know if maybe that's what he had done and that's what helped the healers actually like save her, other than the fact that they have the best healers or
Wait, is it?
whatever. Like
I didn't
um
know that the girl that played Renesmee she's the one that's going for Violet.
hmm she's been everybody's top pick to be Violet because of like she kind of fits body type with how like frail um I almost called her Feyre. Violet is. You just
Wrong
yeah.
book.
Um so yeah. I I don't know. I haven't really seen her act in anything, so I
I
don't
haven't
really
either.
know. Um, like there's a couple things that I want to see that she's in, but I don't really have an opinion yet as to the type of actress that she is to really be like, oh yeah, she could totally fucking do it. Other than the fact that characteristic wise and look, she
Kind of fits.
looks like she could, yeah. So,
Sorry, off topic.
um, no, you're fine. So she finds the forge and she's looking around, going through all that. And she realizes that Fisher has hid another small amount of silver from her, somewhere in the distance, but thinking that it's close by, like distant wise, because, it's always just a small amount. She starts searching the forge, realizing that it's not there, that it is somewhere outside. And so she goes in search of it, only to find Carrion up at the top of a fucking mountain. Um, we find some, pretty interesting information from
Oh,
him at
yeah.
this point, about his grandma, how, he knew about the Fae. So, like, none of this is surprising. She's like, how can you act like this is fucking
Mm-hmm.
normal? Like, they were myths. They just weren't real. They were stories. And, he even makes a comment like, my grandma, she's not the kind of person that's going to fucking go around and just make shit up and, all of that. So he grew up, he knew about all of them, and we find out that she actually had a book that had pictures and illustrations in it, faded text, but she knew the book cover to cover. And there was a message written on the first page that said, "Never forget, monsters thrive best in the dark. Commit all you read to memory. Prepare for war." Um, And of course, like pretty much all Saris can think of is like, how the fuck did she keep this book? Where did it come from? Because Madra had burnt everything mentioning the Fae like centuries ago. She tells Carrion she needs whatever Fisher had given her. Um, I guess he woke Carrion up growling, calling him lazy, waste of carbon. And Fisher told him not to open it, and he disobeyed slightly, and then kind of changed his mind and decided to obey Fisher when his hand started to prickle by only holding the box that the silver was in. And so he figured it was best not to open it, which makes me think that there's something a little bit more to Carrion than what we realize. I mean, I feel like putting that type of description in there is going to be something a little bit bigger later on.
Ooh,
But I don't think it's like an
maybe.
alchemist type of something.
But
Like,
maybe the
I started to
Quicksilver
think
was
maybe
slightly
he was.
awake. But maybe it was slightly awake because we know how it reacted to,
Mhm.
um, what's his face? Heron. Heron.
Yeah,
Whatever his name.
Aaron.
Heron.
I actually started to think maybe he was the heir because, like, his grandma knowing all this stuff and having
Oh.
this book, like, maybe it was something that
Oh.
was, like, passed down because they are, like, descendants of the Fae, like, legit.
Oh.
But fucking Carrion.
I'll
Like,
be so
really?
excited if he gets his book, if she writes his book, because it's planned. Like she's wants to write a book for him, but she's not guaranteeing it. She's not gonna like force it. I believe is how she like
Yeah.
said that she was gonna do it, but there's talk that she wants to do a book for him. I'll read it. I'll read his story.
I would. So she gets the silver. She fails 3 more times with experiments. Um, Fisher sneaks in on them, bleeding from training. So he says, I feel like there was, obviously a lot of shit that went down, which we do find out, like, in the next chapter and stuff, that he was in a bad mood. Uh, she asked why he gave the silver to Carrion to hold instead of hiding it like he did in Kalish. He says he was just trying to make it more interesting. She just finds it fucking annoying. He wants Carrion to go away. He does not like that Carrion is spending time with her. Like, he's very territorial. He wants to him to go find Ren and ask for a job. He even says something about like cleaning the latrines, fucking scrubbing the bathrooms and the toilets and shit like that, whatever. And Carrion tells him he's extra fucking miserable today and he should get laid, which makes Cyrus choke because, you know, Carrion has no idea what the fuck
Yeah.
went down. I mean, they already did the chitty chitty bang bang.
The wham bam, thank you,
And
ma'am.
yeah. And then he says, "Tell him, Sunshine," to which Fisher gets like more pissed and says, "Don't call her Sunshine." And he says, Carrion says, "Why not?" So Fisher says, "Because she's moonlight, the mist that shrouds the mountains, the bite of electricity in the air before a storm, the smoke that rolls across a battlefield before killing the starts. Before the killing starts." Fuck, I fucked it up. "You have no idea what she is, what she could be. You should call her Majesty." Also, see, that kind of feels like it gives away that she could possibly be the heir because the heir is obviously royalty. So, like,
And I was going to mention this later on when we get to the
I feel like
chapter
it's like one of
about
those, like,
what we find out from Lorith with the blood. Can he taste royalty in the blood?
I don't know. I have no idea. That would be interesting, though, if he can pick up on that. But he tells her she's done for the day in the forge and he needs her. And I thought, oh, fuck, he needs something else for her. We're about to go round 2.
I think he gets addicted to her blood too.
You know, I wondered that, like, but I wonder because it's like a high that he gets with that.
The
Like it just kind of like
whatever,
Eureka. I
Not
don't know.
Eureka. Eureka is like Eureka. I found it. Whatever the
Euphoria. Yes,
Yeah.
euphoria. It's euphoric. Yeah. So it's like a high that they get for that. So I bet that it's easy to become like Eureka. Shut up. Eureka, we got it.
I know. But see, I'm like, wait a minute.
Listen, okay, it was a year something, okay? Euphoric.
We were kind of
fucking
both
high.
a little off.
Yeah. And
Ecstasy, pretty much.
yes. And it's probably really easy for them to get like hooked to that because of that feeling. So, I don't know. So we find out in going into Lupo Proelia, whatever that means.
Oh, I'm also convinced that's where she was seeing stars. Pretty sure that was her version.
Oh, yeah.
And she was seeing stars and everything was like shifting around her. Pretty sure that's why.
Yeah. He takes her back to the war tent area and they go inspect the shards in the wall. We find out that it was splintered into 563 shards. They tried having metalists, pull them out, but the pieces were so fine they couldn't grip them properly and snapped 2 of them. She asks Ren what the fuck happened because obviously he's bleeding too, and he just says Fisher was in a bad mood, which I was assuming that that's where he went after Cyrus dropped the whole sterilization bomb on him, like because he was so angry that he went and took out his frustration and was training, and so they had a very intense training session. Just because of the timing of things, I feel like that lines up pretty good. So Cyrus asks if they can't just sand down the shards so they're flush with the stone and make Danya a new sword. To which we find out Ren says that it's not that simple. Danya's sword was special. It was like Nemerel once, imbued with old potent magic. It was a precious Fey heirloom, Danya's birthright, a god sword forged by the ancient Alchemiran masters. Such swords are religious icons of the Fey. It fucking Jesus Christ. It represented Danya's rank and marked her as an original member of the Lupo Proelia, which we find out are Kingfisher's wolves. There are 8 of us usually, though our numbers have been reduced of late. We fight as a team, working together, just as wolves do. I'm sure you've noticed the wolf on some of our armor, which I think that is really cool. Like, they have, like, their pack.
Right.
Let's see. Then we find out, so he continues on saying, Nemerel only carries a small kernel of magic, and all of the other Alchemirian swords became dormant centuries ago, but her blade was still important to her, and it would be sacrilege to just sand the shards and discard the rest. So then Cyrus makes a comment about being in the camp for 5 whole minutes and destroying an ancient weapon, which immediately pisses Danya off, thinking that she's just kind of like brushing it off. And I think that was Cyrus's way of making like a lighthearted joke about a really serious situation. Like, she knows that she like fucked up and stuff. So her and Danya kind of like get into it. They go back and forth for a short time. Danya doesn't like the way that she's being talked to. She tries getting Fisher involved, and he's like, no. What do you expect me to do about it? She's fucking mouthy. He's just like not getting stuck in the middle. So then she tries getting Ren involved or Lorith or whatever, and they're like, we're not fucking getting involved either. Like, this is between the two of you. And Cyrus realizes that the sword wasn't just steel, it was infused with Quicksilver, and that's why it responded to her command to stop when she went after Fisher. She also realizes that was why the copper, the iron, and the gold wasn't just reacting to her, but because they were infused with silver. And that was why Madra collected all of it, because there could be people capable of controlling it. And then it says, Ren says, our historical records show that most alchemists could only command objects if the item in question was comprised of at least 5% Quicksilver. And even then, it was typical that they could only transmute the Quicksilver from its solid to its liquid state so that it could be forged. There are no records of objects being fragmented like this. So then Cyrus says, okay, so that makes me an anomaly. And then Lorith goes, that makes you the most powerful alchemist ever recorded, capable of changing how we've been fighting this war in ways even we can't imagine. Most of us were infants when the paths between realms closed and the alchemists became extinct. Some of us hadn't even been born yet. We have no idea what battlefields used to look like with an alchemist in camp, ready to forge new weapons that draw magic. Which freaks Cyrus out. She's like, I can't fucking... I can't forge weapons. I don't know how to do any of that. So, Danya continues to run her mouth about fighting, how they stuck around, and how they're just going to fall in line with all of this and everything. And she just kind of feels, I imagine, that, they've done all of this and she's just kind of being pushed aside. Like, what they did doesn't matter as much now. And so then Ren goes on to say, every day our numbers decline and Malcolm's horde grows larger. There's no game left to hunt here. Belican isn't sending supplies to the front anymore. We have no wood for fires, no food to fuel the troops, no clothes to keep them warm, no weapons to fucking arm them. So yes, I'll support a plan where a human magically shows up and helps us turn the tide. of this thing because without her, we'll all be drowned soon enough. And I'm not talking about in another 100 years or even 50 or even 10. We have 1 year, Danya, 12 months. If we don't figure this thing out by this time next year, Malcolm will have won. So, like, this is it. Like, they are down to their final chance, their final opportunity to just get ahead and not fail. Which she's kind of reeling from that information because she's like, now the pressure's on even more for her because not only does she have to try to make these relics to try to save, but then she's finding out that they need weapons. And that was something that Fisher never shared with her. He was only worried about the relics. He wasn't too, like, no, you're staying. Well, I need weapons and I need relics and stuff like that. So now she's like, we made this deal. He's letting me go home, knowing that you guys need weapons, but he's not talking about making me forge weapons. Like, he's just telling me that I need to make these relics. So now, because it'll be the right thing to do, she's going to end up sticking around and be like, no, we're going to fucking make these weapons, damn it. Like, it's
They
more than just the relics because that's the right thing to do.
it's
She's
like a
getting to
guilt
know these
trip.
people. She can't walk. Yeah. She's getting to know these people. She's starting to form a bond. She's already kind of bonded with Ren and everything. She's about to bond a little bit with Lorith and get more of a backstory. So I think once he releases her, she's going to end up staying. She's going to see that, obviously he's not this hard ass. He's not a fucking dick. He's just trying not to get attached to people because things are coming to an end. It's temporary. If they fail, it's temporary. She'll get to go home. He won't exist anymore. So, and I think this next part is hilarious because, she's curious as to where he is. And she's talking to Lorith.
I just thought of something about like I don't know what made me think of it, but when she first opened the Quicksilver, now that we know, okay, so now that we know that Fisher was with Malcolm during the time he was gone, it makes you think that if you can put two and two together, when she opened the Quicksilver for him to go get Hayden, he said to close it because feeders would come through. So that tells me that Malcolm knew that he got out because
Yeah.
of the Quicksilver. And he could use that to send his feeders throughout the whole area. To take over
Yeah,
like
definitely.
all the other realms. Sorry. I just thought of that like when you
Oh, no, you're fine. I didn't really think of it that way.
I don't know what made me
Oh,
like think of it, but it's like, oh, maybe that's kind of why.
yeah. Um, So she finds out that, Fisher went back to college to see
Taylena.
Helena,
Taylena.
Helena, the healer, to which she gets jealous because, he's been visiting her an awful fucking lot. So she's thinking that, that's his other side bitch and everything. So she asks where they can get a drink. He takes her to a tavern, I don't fucking know, somewhere. And while they're drinking, she asks him information about Fisher. She thinks he's a liar, and Lorith tells her that he is an oathbound fae, which means he can't lie. So she thinks back to her how big is your cock question, and his answer being big enough to make you scream and then some. Which she found out not a lie at all. He was being fucking truthful about
No?
that. And um, she talks about the bond or the like oath that he kind of made to her, which isn't a blood oath, but something that he is going to stick to because that is just what he does with being an oathbound fae. So the fact that he told her and made the promise to let her go once she makes the relics, knowing they need her to make the weapons, when then he wasn't lying and he'll make good on that oath. So then she decides to ask about the teeth. And we find out that, so she goes,
I love how he's
uh,
embarrassed though about this whole conversation. Like you should not be
yeah.
asking me this.
So he says that their canines work just fine, the same as a vampire's would, but blood drinking is very taboo. And then he says it's worse than taboo, it's scandalous. And she says, but the Fae still do it sometimes. He says, yes, but you don't need blood to survive. They don't. And she goes, then why would you do it? And he says, it's a sex thing. If a male drinks from someone, it'll make his dick harder than it's ever been in his life. It makes you euphoric. So it was right fucking there, not eureka. Makes you euphoric while you're fucking. And he says that it's a slippery slope. If we bite someone, we can still lose ourselves to it. It takes an immeasurable force of will to not keep drinking. And he then says that it's not something that's spoken about in polite company. And if she has any more questions, that they need to do it at a different place or a different time or whatever. It's just not like proper public speaking to talk about the teeth and the blood drinking and
So
shit like
again,
that.
okay, so I retract what I said earlier about maybe like her feeling that sensation seeing the stars. I think he was going too far. It's like a whole Twilight, when he's taken the venom out of her blood and he went too far almost. Like, did he almost go too far with taking some of her blood? And that's why
Oh,
she's
maybe.
seeing stars everywhere. And then he was getting
Could have.
addicted to it.
That's a very good possibility. And I did my best to sum up without like giving away a lot of information for the next part, but she asks Lorith how he ended up there. And he tells her that Fisher bound a piece of his soul to him to save his life from death when they didn't even know each other. And then he had stayed by, Fisher's side to kind of repay that, what he did and stuff. He owes him his life. Basically, he's carrying a piece of Fisher's soul. We find out that Fisher's father had done it with a friend, and so they made sure that Fisher knew how to do it as well in case, something happened. And Lorith tells her that if Fisher dies first, then his remaining soul is to stay around until Lorith dies, which could be who knows how fucking long. But if Lorith dies first, then Fisher would become whole again. And then he also talks about how he had crossed the Omnimarin mountain and it took him 9 days to get to the war camp. And he was just like determined to go be there. And he even says that he's not worried about Fisher possibly dying first. He plans to go out before Fisher does so that way he can give back that piece of his soul.
Doesn't he
Which I
mention
think
though?
is very.
Doesn't he mention though that if Fisher did happen to die first, then he would make sure that he wasn't walking around
Mhm.
for a while, like he
Yep.
would give up his life.
Yeah, that's all I had
Oh, okay.
for that. My bad.
No, 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 you're fine. I didn't want to like start going into it and you're not like done because you have
Nope.
more you wanted to say.
No, that's all I had
Okay.
for that.
So, Fisher was not happy, for one, when he took Cyrus from the tavern back to his room. He leaves her there and doesn't show up till like a day and a half later. And she was pissed and angry, and people started avoiding her because she had missed 3 more trials from the previous day that she could have worked on because she didn't even know where she was going to find the forge. And when he finally does show up, after that midday, the second day, he notices that she was wearing his shirt and that it was too big for her. And so, but she had noticed on him that he looked like he hadn't been sleeping well due to the shadows under his eyes and he looked paler than usual. And this is what I mean. Like, these two things, is it because of her blood? Like, he got a taste of her blood, so, like, is he, like, needing that fix off of
Yeah.
it? Then again, it could just be with everything going on as well. Like, maybe it kept him up at night, like, for what they did. Or realizing, like, the tattoo, if, like, that tattoo has more meaning than what it does. Like, is that what's keeping him, there's a couple outcomes that it could be. He also had a cut on his cheek. Oh, and then I also wanted, like, could it be because he was away from her? Like, if they are, like, bonded somehow or, like, a mate type thing, was it because he was away from her too long? Because I know,
Maybe.
like, other, like, fantasy books that have, like, mates and stuff, they can only be away from each other for so long before it starts affecting them. Like, they can't be separated. But that would be only if we believe that he had marked her that type of way, like a mate bond.
Yeah.
And then he announced again that he was going to see Taylena. That's how you say it, Taylena. And he would be there for a couple of hours, making her jealous again. She's like, "Tell her I said hi," like, to make sure that she knows, hey, I'm here. Because she
Yeah.
believes something's going on with the two, because he's always with her, even when he's not injured. He's always with her. But I believe it's to help with something else. I don't think it's for him being injured. That may be part of it when he does have, like, that slight, like, I think it's either helping her or helping him with something, or, like, something that happened when he was with Malcolm. She's helping him with something, and not in the way that Sarah thinks.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten to that part or know exactly. When he's done, when he would be done, he'd come back for her because there was something that he wanted to show her. So we're going to kind of skip a little bit when he comes back, because she really didn't do anything while he was gone. He even took the time to pack her a bag. And when she asked if she was coming back, because she was afraid that she wasn't, he was letting her take Onyx if it would make her feel bad. And she notes that how he's actually caring what she feels about, like how she feels. So she did note that. So they go through the Shadow Gate again, and she's asking him where they were going. And he finally opens up just a smidge. They were in a place called Ballard. He had gone there a couple of times as a little kid, which we find out was more, I think, than once as a kid, because they have a whole apartment. Him and his mom had a whole apartment, and she's a big part of this little town.
She that looks just like that's his mom. Looks just like Everlane. So
According to Fisher, this small village has something they need, and she was afraid, like, he was going to attack them for this, but he's like, I don't plan on attacking them. I'm just getting what they need, and we're leaving peacefully. He's like, unless you plan on.
yeah.
And she's like, no. We learn that the residents of Ballard consisted of a mixture of high fae and lesser fae creatures. She had noted that it was full of life, that this place was a home. She kind of opens up to Fisher, and she couldn't really figure out, like, it just came out of nowhere, how this was the life that she wanted for Hayden, somewhere that he could strive. But she knew, even though because Fisher brought up about Carrie and getting him a place and a job, she knew it wasn't enough to tame him, because he had his gambling addiction, and he was always getting into trouble because of it.
Yeah.
And she states that it would be a miracle that once she's home, he'd still be alive. So Fisher says, you will be able to go home, but I can't make guarantees, that your brother will be alive. But he did state that he was going to help her in the forge to figure out the transmutation, because he didn't want to be around Danya, because she was already at his throat with everything and pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this made me think, could what they're missing, because last episode I stated that I believe it's simpler than what they're making it, of what they need to make these. Could it be an alchemist's blood mixed in? Because alchemists are the ones that can go through the quicksilver or like deal with the quicksilver, touch it, mold it, whatever. So if they put their blood in a pendant, could that help the person go through the portals
I don't
without
know.
affecting them? I got to thinking about that. It would make
That'll be
sense.
interesting to find out if that is something that, even if it's just something that needs to be used to like forge the relics the way that like is that the missing ingredient? She's been trying all of these ingredients
Mm-hmm.
with the quicksilver and stuff like that. And that'd be like
Because they're the only ones that
a
can
big thing
handle.
to find out. Yeah.
They're the only things that can handle the quicksilver. So it would make sense that like if there's something like in their blood or something, like if they mixed it with what they need to mix it with, that it would allow that person wearing this pendant because it'd be strong enough for them to go through the portal with or the little portals without affecting them.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Like I said, I believe it's something more simpler than what they're trying to do. Like they're overthinking it in a way. I'll be surprised though if I'm right. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm right, but it's a good theory, like that it would be their
It
blood.
is.
But I'm not 100% like if I if I'm right, but we'll see. We get a little bit of learning about the Fae that the offspring age twice as fast as human children and are fully grown by 21, 22, which is when the aging process starts to slow down for them, so they always look younger than what they really are. But they are liable to be picked up by predators such as 4 different kinds of banshee, wraiths, sawtooth mermaids, den dwelling creatures, plant life, and also Malcolm. And she notes that he didn't say like the vampires, he straight up just said Malcolm. So I'm assuming Malcolm's going to take these younger children because they're easier to manipulate and keep them who they are,
Yeah.
but turn them into actual vampires and not feeders. She then makes a joke about females wondering because there was a group of females like trying to get, Fisher's attention. And she made a joke about females wondering if the Lord of Kalish was in the market for a Lady of Kalish. And he didn't take this too well. He did not like being called a lord because he left them for 110 years. He left his people for 110 years. Some of the people he was supposed to take care of were on the wrong side of the darn, begging for the blood of their children, while others had abandoned their homes and moved away. So nobody's around except for the warriors. He was supposed to protect them, but he failed them. So she kind of sits there thinking over what exactly to say, and then she wanted to like grab his hand, telling him like, hey, I'm here for you type of thing. But before she like psychs herself up, he asked her why she hadn't said anything, and she thought it was about like what they were just talking about, and she tried to like be like, well, I was thinking of my answer, and he says no, he was talking about the other night. So she kind of like brings up the fact that, he said that it was only a one time thing, that he could hate her and still want to fuck her. And she reasons that she wasn't the one to throw herself at things that hurt her. And she knew that he wouldn't just sit there and have a conversation with her about like why they would work good together. But he tells her that there are things she doesn't understand, things that make it impossible. And he kind of didn't get his sentence finished because we meet Wendy, who interrupted their conversation. But going back to that, when he tells her, like, things that she doesn't understand, I think it all leads back to Malcolm. Like, I think everything's going to revolve around Malcolm on who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back to Wendy again, they're into their conversation, and she calls him Kingfisher of the Aljun Gate. I think that's how you say that. Which we don't know yet what that typically means. So hopefully, like in these next set of chapters, it's kind of more touch base on that, exactly why he's called called that. And she
Mm-hmm.
also, there's something special with Wendy because she also, once Saris introduced herself before she could say that she was from Zilvarian, Wendy knew she was from Zilvarian, and she had felt her pass through the Quicksilver because there was a buzzing in the air the day it happened. So there's something special with Wendy. So hopefully we kind of learn more about her as well, of like exactly what she is. Maybe she's like some type of special fae, or she's like she worked with his mom or something. And I thought this was funny because she also smelled Fisher on her and
Yeah.
wondered if Saris was more than like just a companion. But Fisher just said that she was just a friend who was heading back home soon, and kind of like left it at that. All right, so this next kind of goes quick. This next little section. So she offers them food because Fisher kind of changes the subject and everything about, hey, remember food. So during their meal, Saris could see the tension in Kingfisher's shoulders and the quicksilver in his eyes going wild. So I think it senses. I wonder if it senses something's going to happen. Like when it
Yeah.
goes wild. Because next thing you know, out of nowhere, Saris hears Anarath more over and over. The words had came out of nowhere, loud and full of terror. When she came back to Wendy asked if she was all right, and Saris played it off. I just got dizzy, but Fisher knew she heard something. She also noted that Fisher was white as a sheet and looked uneasy. I think these words are tied with something, but like again, with Malcolm. I think a lot of things are tied with Malcolm. Because every time she speaks the words, he's shocked and he's afraid. Like she notes that he was afraid. Because as they were leaving, Fisher just says they were exhausted, they ate too much, they drank too much, so he was getting them out of there. She thought they were heading back to Kalish, but they weren't. So they're like walking this little path, and as they were leaving, he demands why she said those words back there, and she didn't even know like that she was saying them out loud. One minute she was listening to him talk about, him smiling all the time around his friends, and the next the words were just there. Again, this is where I put like she noted that he looked afraid. Now, we haven't looked up what the meaning of these words means, so we're not quite sure, but I feel like it's something tied with Malcolm, I believe, and their oath bond that they have. There's something there.
Yeah.
Because he also states she tried to get out of him what they meant, but Fisher said it was better if she didn't ask, and he wasn't able to tell her anyways. And if he's not able to tell her, it all ties back to Malcolm. Like he's holding that over him. Like there's certain things he can't talk about because of that oath bond he has with him. That's my theory. So they come across, or they're walking through this cobblestone square, and in the middle was a circular fountain with a female with flowing, beautiful hair and a heart-shaped face. She held a stone urn where a steady stream of water poured into the pool at her feet. She notes that Fisher angled his head away from the statue, but she's seen the plaque at the bottom, Adina of the Seven Towers. I think that's how you say that, right? Adina?
Mm-hmm.
Adina?
Adina.
Adina of the Seven Towers, Lady of Kalish. She put two and two together that it was Kingfisher's mother because she states how she looks like Everlane and then like the cheekbones that Fisher had gotten from her. So they were definitely important people of Ballard, him and his mom. So they're kind of going along, and he goes through this like little alleyway, and he has a key to this little door. Going up it, she realizes that it was where him and his mother lived. All the pictures were covered, and as soon as they were in the room, he made work on closing the curtains that faced the fountain so he can't look at the fountain. And then he lets her take the bigger room and sleeps in the smaller one because it was his room anyways. So that kind of confirms to her, that was their place. But and then he points out the bathroom. She just realizes she left her bag back at Wendy's, but Fisher had summoned it for her and tells her goodnight. And that's kind of where it ends. But I need to know more because I'm convinced a lot of things are going to revolve around this Malcolm dude.
Yeah.
And Quicksilver. Although I don't think the Quicksilver's tied with him. Because Silver's the only thing that can kill them. That's why they need the Quicksilver to go into the relics. The Anorath Moor, I believe, though, is tied to Malcolm or something worse. My guess is Malcolm, though.
Yeah.
And whatever happened while he was gone.
We'll find out.
I know.
I feel like there's we don't really have that much more to go.
We have
But
5
like
more
20
weeks.
chapters.
Or no, 4 more episodes. Because it's 9 weeks. So we have 4 more episodes. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot left.
No.
I'm like, is this really 4 weeks worth right here still? It looks so less for how big the chapters, unless we're getting with smaller chapters now.
Yeah.
Than what we have been. Now that we kind of gotten past all the world building and back a little bit more, we're kind of slowing down to the juicier stuff. But thank you for watching or listening to this week's episode, and join us next week for chapters 26 through 30.